What's up, Classic Bass? Bassmaster Elite Series Pro Seth Feider here. I'm going to show you a brand new, a fairly new finesse rig. Not a lot of people are throwing yet, but it's a really killer way to catch a lot of bass when they're high pressure and not getting a lot of bites on anything else. It's called a Neko Rig. This is a VMC Neko nail weight. Take a standard finesse worm, insert the nail weight right in the head of the worm. The cool thing about the VMC, they got all these little barbs on their weight. And the problem I had before this, that you'd catch a few fish on that worm and they'd throw that nail weight out of there and come out of there. So those ribs on there really help it hold on really good. And then I get size 36 O-rings from Menards, whatever Home Depot store. You can get them a bunch for pretty cheap. Slide that over your finesse worm. It's kind of a key to fish it with the O-ring. You'll just cast off too many of them using these soft worms without them. And then I take my VMC Neko hook. It's kind of a modified straight shank, but in a real light wire gauge. This is a size 2 VMC. That's probably my favorite for these smaller worms. If you use like Senko style baits, you might want to go to the size 1. And then you rig it vertically. You know, on a regular wacky rig, you'd go horizontally through the bait. And this one, I go straight up and down with it. You get a little bit of meat on there, and that's your basic Neko rig right there. And what this will do with that nail weight in the head, it actually, I use a 1/16 ounce most of the time, and I'll still fish this in 20-25 feet of water, maybe even deeper. It actually falls fairly fast for a 1/16 because all that pulls straight on the head, so the worm falls really straight and actually falls pretty quick for how lightly weighted it is. And then you know, when it gets down, that nail hits the bottom, but use a hand-poured worm or any of your decent finesse worms will stand up really well. Anything that's got a lot of salt in it, and you're basically just shaking your slack like you would a shaky head or a wacky Senko. And it's got a lot of different action. You know, you can really put a lot more action into this bait without moving it away from a fish like you would with a shaky head. The other cool thing is, because of this nail weight, that's another thing. You want to use lead nail weights, not tungsten, because the length of the lead actually creates a little backward slide on this. Like when you twitch this bait up hard a few times and get it off the bottom, that nail weight, it doesn't do this every time, but maybe 1 out of 3 times, the way you pull your worm up, it's always going to want to fall to wherever that head is when you lift your worm off the bottom. So if you do get it where your head's backwards, it'll actually fall back towards the fish, and you get a lot of bites doing that. It's definitely something a lot of fish haven't seen yet. It'll be a hot technique here for at least for a few years before everybody catches on and starts throwing it. But it's been a serious fish catcher for me the last couple of years, and the VMC nailed that hook. This thing, it's perfect. I've literally lost like 0 bass on this since I started using it. Super sharp, gauge is right, the angle's right. Really high percentage bait for me.